Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Maybe you could just begin with a brief introduction for people who don't know anything about your film. What can they expect from Falling Into Place?
Well, Falling into Place is it is a story about German Kira and Scottish Ian who meet over a winter weekend on the Scottish island Isle of Skye, and they spend some very eventful hours together, and their like flirtatious and charming connection quickly turns into quite an intense bond. And then they part again, and we follow them into each their lives, which both happen in London, which they don't know about each other, that they're in the same place. And we wonder, while we watch them getting closer to themselves, if they will ever run into each other again. So, yeah, it's a love story, but maybe a love story of a bit of another kind, because, yeah, we're also watching two people who are on their journey towards themselves, I would say.
And obviously, you've had such a successful career already as an actress. What was the spark of the idea that thought, right, I want to go and make my own film? And what was that transition like, going from being in front of the camera well, I guess in this case, you're doing both, but telling your own story.
I was going for a walk with a friend of mine in Victoria Park in London, and we talked about dreams. And I said to her that it's my dream to write and direct a feature film. And she told me what her dream was. And yeah, we felt like quite like small and melancholic that day. And we thought our dreams are so big, and wow, and then I said to her, listen, maybe we have to start with a very small step. And I invented this game for us where I set my phone on a timer for 30 minutes. And I said to her, we have to either write a poem or a song or a scene. And then I chose a scene, and straight away I heard this dialogue in my head, from like a man and a woman. And the man says to the woman, life is just a repetition of distractions to make you forget that you die until you die. And the woman says, really? That's why we're sent here? And those two talk, and at some point he tries to kiss her, and she's like, no, we're not there yet. And then I looked at my phone. I still had 15 minutes, had written the scene, and then I thought, okay, who could she be? Who could he be? What could be like, what could be the story? And I wrote that down, and then the alarm went off. So that was it. It was just a game, eh? And then 2 months later, I went to Scotland for the first time in my life, for Hogmanay in Edinburgh, in New Year's. And I just sat down on the 1st of January in a little cafe and started writing the script, because I guess I wanted to know who these two people are and why they talk to each other like this and what their journeys will be. And so I um I had booked a little bed and breakfast for 2 nights. And then every 2 nights I went down to the woman who runs it, and I was like, can I maybe stay another 2 nights? And I did that for 4 weeks. And so I just stayed in Edinburgh for 4 weeks, and I wrote the full script then. Yeah.
Amazing. And I guess maybe it's a stupid question, but you always knew that you were going to play your character, or was that something that was still a question mark in your head? And in what ways do you think that she maybe stems from, your own characteristics? How is she very different from you? And how did you kind of, get into that role, based on your script?
For me, it was not very clear at the beginning. Like, in fact, when I wrote the script, it happened in such a like pure and innocent way that I even thought I might not ever share this with anyone. It was like, what was important to me was that the story lands on the page, and so that the story exists. That was what was the most important thing for me. And then it was like step 2 and 3 and 4 that I then was brave enough to first share it with a few friends, and then was brave enough to share it with my London acting agents, who introduced me to their literary department. And yeah, like a moment later, I suddenly had a London-based agent as a director writer, when I had only just written my first script. So that was all quite fast. And then really it was first of all, my London agent, Nish, but then it was also my German producers that I then found for the project who said to me, Eileen, we think you should also play Kira, and we also think you should do your directorial debut. Because, I was kind of relaxed about it. I was like, yeah, sure, I could do all the three things, but we could give it to another director, we could have someone else play Kira. So I really said to them, you guys explain to me how we can package this best for it to become something real. And so they did, and that's how I ended up actually playing the main woman in the film also. And about your second question about where does inspiration come from, I find it super hard to answer this question because I feel like everything is always inspiration. Do you know what I mean? Like there's things that obviously one explores in their own life, and like definitely the big two topics in the film are love and loss, and that's for sure the two topics that are most interesting for me also in my life. I could explore those topics forever. I just find it hugely interesting how people feel for each other, how they connect, how they lose each other. And because I guess it's the big question of living and dying as well. And yeah, anyway, so that is one thing, but then I find inspiration in music. I find inspiration in the nature, in things that I hear and things that I see, obviously also in films, in books that I read. Like, I don't know, I think inspiration is just everywhere constantly, and it's hard later to detect and be specific about which moment came from which moment in my life that I received a certain thing. I don't know. It's just the result of living, I would say.
And of course, you put together such a fantastic cast, but in particular, Chris Fulton, and I guess casting that role was going to be really crucial, to feel like there's like a magnetic pull between those characters right from the beginning, and something that sort of takes them out of their everyday lives, and something that sort of, they can't forget about, and stays with them. So why was Chris the right person, and what was it like working with him?
I mean, obviously he was the right person. So yeah, I was really lucky. We were working with a Scottish London-based casting director, Des Hamilton, who has done big films, Jojo Rabbit, Only God Forgives, like, big stuff. And he loved the script, and he wanted to find the right actors for me, and so he did. And Chris Fulton was just one of the, I think, about 20 Scottish actors that he suggested for the role of Ian. Chris brought something that not only, his acting skills, but he also brought something that was, for me, crucial for the character, which is this mix of a very charming, flirtatious, and fiery kind of color mixed in with a vulnerability and something very deep and thoughtful. And he just portrayed those colors beautifully during the audition process. And already in the audition, I tried out some of the scenes with the actors, but then I also did some improvisation with them because I knew that would be a tool that I would want to work with during filming. And then obviously I also went into the scenes as Kira because, I also needed to make sure that I find someone who's okay with the fact that I'm their director, but at the same time their love interest, because, we're telling a love story. So yeah, it was just the chemistry with Chris was like really, really beautiful. And I think we had the same kind of humor as well, which I think is super important for Kira and Ian because they're so silly together at the beginning, and you can tell that this is also a little bit like the power that they have together, just, this nearly childish behavior together, that obviously then, as the story unfolds, turns into more like serious chats and so on. But yeah, I'm super, super happy that we found Chris for that role.
And I was going to say also kind of the look and feel of the film, and how you use locations very specifically. And I guess it kind of, you know, that clear cut separation between, you know, where they've met and the Isle of Skye, and then coming back to their lives in London, and suddenly that lightness and playfulness and connection that they had there, you know, suddenly seems to be gone, and that seems to be reflected as well in those different places. So why were those elements also important for the storytelling?
First of all, what I found really interesting was that the locations very often are kind of mirroring the characters in a landscape. So we have this, you know, deep melancholy that just hangs in the air on the Isle of Skye. It's, you know, it's in the fog in the mornings and in the quick changes of weather, and there's just something in the light, in the sunrises and the sunsets, just in the dawn light, in the blue hour light, that I don't know, that just for me had this melancholic tone, this very gentle tone, and it brought me closer to those two lost souls. Because really, I think even when they stand in the world in such different ways, Ian was this, you know, very performative, very outgoing behavior, and Kira, who's more stood back, more thoughtful, and more the watcher. But what they have in common is that they are both very, very lonely, and they both do not find any love for themselves. So yeah, to me, that was kind of reflected in the landscape of the Isle of Skye. And then when we come into London, you know, we have the overwhelm of the city, the noise, you know, the constant distractions that they are being surrounded by. And we also suddenly put them in order. So first on the Isle of Skye, it's really like two souls meet. But then when we come to London with them, we get a lot of more information. What are they doing for a living? You know, who are their friends? Who are their partners? Who are their ex-partners? So they are suddenly put into places in their everyday life. And yeah, and I guess that is why this time in Skye gets something magical, which is maybe intensified because of the fact that it becomes a memory for the two of them, you know. But I think the way they connect is maybe much more honest and purer than the way that they connect with their actual friends or their actual partners in their real life in London.
And I also have to make mention of the music. So I just love the soundtrack. It's stunning. But of course, you know, it's also a thread through the film. Ian, with you know, with his music and with his sister. But I also know that you have John Hopkins working with you on the music. So maybe you can just talk a bit us through that and why it was so important to the film.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think for me it was always clear that the music had nearly had the same kind of importance than the paintings that Kira would create, because we are following two artists who have their art, a different form of art, as a way of expressing themselves when words do not seem to be enough, or words do not seem to be approachable for them. So Ian is this musician. He's quite unsuccessful, and he's trying his best as a singer-songwriter, but he really, you know, he just doesn't have any kind of career. And there's this one instrument, the piano, that connects him to his sister, and we find out as the story unfolds that there's a very painful connection with his sister, without giving anything away now. But basically, there's a moment in the film where Ian returns to the piano and starts playing again. And for me, it was absolutely crucial, like what kind of melody he would play and in which way. And so I was just extremely lucky to get John Hopkins to create the pieces that Ian is creating in the film. Yeah, I think John did just a super beautiful job. You know, it was super nice the way that he created it. He knew the script, he loved the script, so he read it and he wanted to be a part of it. And And so he knew the script, but then on top of that, I just told him a lot about the characters and about the relationship between Ian and his sister. And then he just started improvising. And then he just started improvising, and he always checked in with me, and he was like, how is this? How is this? And then I was able to go like, oh, can it be a bit more? Can it hurt a little bit more in this bit? And, and thus those pieces were created by John. And then John recommended a composer to me that is based in Germany, Ben Lucas Boysen, and those two had already worked together. So he said that Ben would be really ideal for the rest of the score. And then on the foundation of John's pieces in the film, Ben started working on all the other score bits, and I think it's a super beautiful collaboration. They're actually releasing the original score this month, so in a few days. Very, very proud, to be honest, because I love the music as well. And yeah, and then on top of that, we just got a lot of really good songs in the film, and that was mainly because my editor, David Achilles, he put all these amazing songs into the film, right? And I loved them. And I said to him, David, this is great. How do we get the songs? And he said to me, no, Eileen, these are like layout songs. You always edit, you cut on music for like the rhythm of a scene, but we will never get these songs. This is all like really famous people. And we have to choose, we have to find other musicians, we have to choose other songs. And I was like, no, David, like I'm in love with this music now. We need exactly these songs. And we couldn't afford them because it's a debut film, so we had a small budget. But then to be honest, I was just a bit bold, and I just contacted the musicians myself. And I was just like, "Hi, I'm Eileen. I've done this film. We want your song in it. Is there anything we can do?" And then we started communicating with them, and then their managements and labels and agents were just all very lovely. And in the end, I did get every song that I wanted to have in the film, which is a big gift.
Yeah. Just in terms of the takeaways from the film, I think for me, it just sort of has this quite kind of old school romantic feeling, a bit kind of like the Before Sunrise, trilogy, where it's not necessarily about it being kind of like, this idealized thing about love, or the characters are flawed and nothing is perfect, but it's capturing something of that magic that's kind of maybe a bit intangible and hard to put into words, and also for me at the heart of it is kind of looking at yourself, and maybe you're not able to love other people if you're constantly she's saying to her ex, how do you want me to be different? Well, I'm not asking you to change for me. You need to be content with yourself. It feels like this is another important theme in the film.
Yeah. First of all, I think, you're referring to like a mental health topic that I'm speaking about in the film. And I think that is just the thing, that we tell the story about Ian and Kira, who have a big problem to love themselves. But I think that really is what happens to all of us, or to most of us. Not only in our generation, I think it goes through generations, but I think in our time right now, that is a big topic. The question of why is it so hard for us to love ourselves? Why is it so hard to just be ourselves and be happy with that? And, I've asked myself the same question. I'm like, why do we come into this world, and as little children, we're so free, we express all of our emotions, everything is accepted the way that we are, and everything is good, and we are just full of love. And then we come into school and we start being judged, and then we grow up and we start being judged more and more and more. And at some point we just arrive in these in this insecurity that we're suddenly like, oh, I'm not enough this, I'm not enough this, I'm not enough this. And then on top of that, with my generation being the first one that was introduced to social media and dating apps and stuff like that, I think that only intensified our insecurity about ourselves and about, approaching love, and approaching finding a partner for whatever. And I think there's a lot of unhealthy stuff in social media and in dating apps. And in my film, those two people are not meeting on an app. They are meeting in the real life. And even though that might seem a little bit old-fashioned to the youth nowadays, but I think really I still believe that this is the romantic bit about love, that you meet someone and you see them and and they see you, and you love things in their personality, you love things in the way they move, in the way they laugh, I don't know, and you have not pre-selected them first on an app like in a supermarket while you're dating 5 other people at the same time and seeing 3 people on the same weekend, you know. I think and that's why the audiences who have seen the film so far react so strongly and with so much love towards the film, because I think that is something that we all long for, you know, to arrive in a place where we start liking ourselves and where we stop judging who we are. Because why do we do that? I don't know. I don't know what our society is doing that we all become so insecure, but I find it very sad. And I hope that the whole social media stuff, you know, maybe has to peak, but then that something new will come back into our lives again, which is hopefully more loving and more human.
Absolutely. Well, just very finally, you know, what does it mean to you to have your film playing there in Glasgow? And I know it's already had such a wonderful reception in the German Critics Circle, at Berlinale, as well. And I guess it must have really given you the appetite to not only continue with your acting, but also to make more films in future. So have you got an idea what you might do next?
Yeah, I mean, obviously so happy about Falling Into Place journey so far, and that we are also selling the film to different countries now, and that, you know, it's starting its way into the world. And yeah, I'm working on my new script, and you know, obviously the acting jobs always come in, and I'm very happy to go on with my acting as well. But I'm also very excited now to jump into the next project that will again challenge me as a writer director.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me, and huge congratulations. I really love the film. I feel like it's one of those that's really going to stay with me. I haven't watched a film like that in a long time. So
Thank you so
really
much.
congratulations on that. And
Oh,
speak to you. Thanks a lot.
thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you.